Hi guys. So today we're going to do a lab, but we're also going to do, before we do the lab, we're going to do a brief lecture, and we're going to go over nerves, neurons, and basically sort of explain them, and I'll tell you about our objectives in just a second. But before we start, you're going to need to have with you a pencil or a pen. You're going to need some paper, preferably something that's in your notebook. If you normally take notes in a spiral notebook, if not, whatever you take notes for in your lab notebook. So you need some paper for your lab notebook. And you're going to need some colors because we're going to color a diagram. And lastly, you're going to need that diagram. So you're going to need that neuron diagram that you have in your packet. The one that looks kind of like this, got little things coming off of it like this. So, okay, so stop the video right now and go and get the packet that I sent home with you. You're going to find that you have this neuron diagram in there. Get yourself some colors and get a pen or a pencil and some paper. And then come on back and let's get started. Okay, guys, so what are our objectives today? So the objectives that we're going to do today are, first, we're going to go ahead and state the differences between neurons and nerves. So what is the difference between a neuron and nerve? So let me just write this out for you. So state the differences between a neuron and a nerve.
You recording?
Mm-hmm.
Can you pause?
I cannot. The next objective that we're going to do is identify 3 types of neurons and define their function. So we're going to look at 3 different types of neurons. So we're going to look at these neurons, and then we're going to tell you what they do. Okay? In other words, what do they do and how are they different from each other? Then the next thing we're going to look at is we're going to look at a nerve impulse, and we're going to figure out what its pathway is. So we're going to define what a nerve impulse is. And we're going to identify its pathway. I didn't finish my quotation marks. Its pathway. Oh, that looks kind of messy. Sorry, guys. Let me erase that. So is this Mrs. Devons is learning a new what do you want to call it? Software. Okay, so sorry if it takes me a bit longer. And then the last thing we want to do, and see, so now it stopped writing on me. Okay. So the next thing we want to do, or the last thing we're going to do, is we're going to define a reaction time. And there is some fabulous things we're going to do with defining this and actually have you doing this. So we're going to do some experiments with that today as a class. Okay, guys, so I wanted to briefly talk to you about the difference between, or the similarities and the differences between cells that we know and we see, and we know that they are similar in that they all have a nucleus, except for the red blood cell. We know that's an exception, but they have a nucleus. They have cell organelles, which are mitochondria, They have an endoplasmic reticulum. They have a Golgi apparatus. So they all have a lot of similarities, but they all look different. And the reason they look different is because they look like, or they fit the job that they do. So they have a special function. So for a muscle cell, you know that the function is to contract or to move a bone, right? The red blood cell carries oxygen. The bone cell, well, depending on the type of bone cell, it's either going to make bone for you or it's going to help remodel the bone in case it's broken. You have to take some away and then you have to add some back. So their structure, the cell structure, their structure, in other words, what they look like, is related to their job or their function. In other words, they fit the job that they do. Red blood cells are pretty small because they got to get through those very tiny arterioles and venules, remember? Those capillaries, they've got to get through those. Okay, so the same, if we know this is true about these cells that we're talking about, other cells in the body, well, the same is going to be true for nerve cells. And when we talk about a nerve cell, when we talk about one nerve cell, we're talking about one neuron. So one nerve cell is one neuron. Sorry, that doesn't really look like a V, does it? So here we go. Let me try that again. It's called a neuron. I don't know why that just did that, guys. That's interesting. I'm still working on this program. Anyway, so if we look here, we can see that we indeed have different nerve cells, don't we? We have this one here that's a bipolar nerve cell. We have this one here that's a unipolar nerve cell. Yep. This one here, it's a pseudopolar nerve cell, and that's a little complicated, but I can explain that later. And this one here, this is a multipolar nerve cell, and this one is the one that we all think about all the time when we're looking at nerve cells and thinking about what our brain is doing. It's this guy. This guy gets, my gosh, this guy is the famous neuron, the most famous neuron. And this is a multipolar neuron. And this multipolar neuron, this is what we think. And indeed, this is the one that you have in your pictures that I'm going to ask you to open up. And we are going to label this multipolar neuron, but we're just going to call it a neuron because it is a single nerve cell. These are all neurons. They all look different from each other because they all have slightly different functions. They do slightly different things. Okay, so I need you to go ahead and stop this recording now and grab your neuron. It's in the packet that I gave you, your neuron paper or your neuron image. And then we're going to color it and label it together. So grab your neurons and grab some pencils or some colored pencils or some crayons or something. Okay, stop it here and we'll get going again. So what is a neuron? A neuron is a nerve cell. So a neuron, this nerve cell, what does it do? It carries information throughout the nervous system. And we're going to be talking about what the nervous system is, but basically the nervous system is your brain and your spinal cord and all the nerves that are surrounding your spinal cord that goes throughout the body. So what is the information that it carries? I'm glad you guys asked that. So the information it carries, the information that the neuron carries is an electrical impulse. That is impressive. Your cells carry electricity. That is impressive. So if a neuron is a single nerve cell, then what is a nerve? Well, a nerve is a bundle. I think I made my pen too big. What do you guys think? It's kind of fat. A bundle of neurons. So if you put a whole bunch of neurons together, you get a nerve. So you see all these neurons? Let me make my pencil a lot thinner. Okay, so you see all of these neurons here, all of these nerve cells? Yep, these are individual nerve cells. Yep, and if you put a whole bunch of these together, see this? If we put a whole bunch of these together, then what we do, yeah, is we make a nerve. So you can see that a nerve is a whole bunch of neurons put together. Okay, guys, so what we see here is, let me see if I can make this a little bigger. So what we're seeing here is basically, remember I told you that for our nervous system, we have the brain, and then we have the spinal cord, and then we have all these nerves right here that are attached to the brain and the spinal cord. What I want you to understand in all of this, that when we're looking at these nerves, remember that these are a whole big, huge amount of neurons. So let me write this down for you. So these nerves that you see, oh, Miss Devons forgot to change the size of the pen again. Okay, so these nerves that we see are, and it didn't change for me. Let me try that one again, guys. Sorry. Okay, wait, there we go. Press that, maybe it'll work. Are literally hundreds. All right, I don't know what's going on now. Let me try one more time. See, you guys see me pressing that small dot. Okay, go back. Let's press that dot, and then that dot, and I don't know. Okay, hundreds of thousands, I give up, guys, okay, of neurons. So remember, the neurons are an individual nerve cell. They are one nerve cell. And then nerves are what you see right here. I'm going to change my color to like a yellow, and I'm going to maybe change my pen size to something small. Let's see if that works. So these, oh, it worked this time. Okay, so now I'm going to change my pen size to something bigger. Yellow and big. Okay, so too big. I'm really sorry, guys. Okay, so these, all that we see here, these, what we see in here, all of these that I'm coloring and I'm going to erase, all of those are hundreds and hundreds of thousands of neurons. Yep, you've got over a billion, you heard me right, 1 billion neurons in your body. Yeah, so of course, nerves are made up of hundreds of thousands of these guys, right? These neurons. I'm erasing all of that stuff that I made. So anyway, you see all of these nerves, and really, if we were to put all of the nerves in, it would look like your capillary network, because you have nerves absolutely everywhere on your body, right? Okay, so I'm going to write down a couple of things that I want you to write down now. So bear with me, get your sheet of paper out, get your pen and your pencil, and let's take down a few notes from this presentation.